Hi, it's KCCK's Culture Crawl. I'm Dennis Green, and my guest today is Tim Daugherty in the first of our series of 4 interviews prior to our very special 50th anniversary Jazz Under the Stars. Tim, welcome.
Good to be here, Dennis. Thanks for inviting me.
Tim, of course, is a longtime Iowa musician, now working out of the California area, and will be performing with his original band, Daugherty, Davis, and McPartland, to open up Jazz Under the Stars in what will be 4 different reunion concerts. But really, Tim, our first concert is our biggest reunion because the 3 of you have not performed together for nearly 30 years.
It is amazing that we are getting together to play, but I think it's time. It's time for us to finally get together and play and perform. And what better place than Jazz Under the Stars?
Daugherty, Davis, and McPartland played at the very first Jazz Under the Stars. Matter of fact, it was before it was even Jazz Under the Stars.
What was it called then?
Was it called Hot August Nights, I think?
I don't know. I think it was called A Bunch of People Who Want to Play Jazz. I think that was.
But it was actually out back of some of the buildings at Kirkwood. And
yes, that is true.
They did that for a couple of years before finally moving to Noelridge. Yes. But I think that you were on the first Noelridge gig too.
We were up on the hill as opposed to where it's been in the past years now.
Yeah, that's right.
Up there.
Almost exactly the opposite of what it is now. It was up on the hill by the pool, and then the audience was down instead of at the bottom, and the audience then fills up toward the pool.
Yeah, it was nice that way. That way they couldn't throw any type of vegetables at us. We were.
Tim, talk about the beginnings of Daugherty, Davis, and McPartland, because I know that the 3 of you met in high school at Washington, and that was when you first started playing together.
We played together in high school. My oldest brother, Mike, had a band called the Soul Company, and Denny McPartland played with my brother, Pat, who was one of the second brothers to play in the Soul Company. And then Billy Davis joined the group. When he was a junior, Pat was a senior, and he played with me, and I was a sophomore. Then I joined the band. And then Billy and I played together when he was a senior, I was a junior. And then we all kind of went our separate ways a little bit. And back in 1982, and make a long story short, I did a recording with the University of Iowa Big Band called Iowa Will Be Waltzing and Tennessee Will Be Singing the Blues. A woman named Tangi Thomas, who was performing at the 5 Seasons upstairs.
Tommy and Tangi. I remember that, man.
Tommy and Tangi. I had, for certain reasons, I had her perform the song. She did a wonderful job. And upstairs, WMT was broadcasting. I don't know if you remember that, on the top floor.
Yeah, they had a studio on the top floor of the hotel.
And she was plugging. She'd always go over there with Carrie Hahn would be up there. And she would go up there and they would play the song. And so the song got a lot of airplay. And the manager of the hotel asked me, he said, we don't have local bands play here in Cedar Rapids at the top of the 5, but would you be interested in putting a band together? And I said, yes, I would, because I was trying to actually move out to California and perform like in the LA area or work out there. And that was an original reason why I was made recording that one, as well as the one prior to it with Jimmy Frazier called Go For It. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but that was with the Iowa Hawkeyes football team. But I said to Denny, I came back from LA, and after that idea had been put in my head about playing or putting together a band, I said, Denny, can you do it? And Billy had just left the band Akasha, which was a very prominent rock band. And my dad saw him in Des Moines, said, Billy Davis is looking for a job. And I said, hey, he would be perfect. And that was the beginning. It was originally called the Tim Daugherty Group, but then it became Daugherty, Davis, and McPartland. And we started up there playing up at the top of the 5. And before you know it, we branched out. And originally the band was put together for original music that I was doing, which was mostly pop, a little bit of pop jazz. And we put together a 4-song EP called All For You that featured original music. And then I tried to go out to LA, and I decided to come back to Iowa and just stay with the band. And we ended up working in the area for close to 14, 13 years. And we had a great time, a lot of performance. And we got to a point where we were going to be doing a record with a major record label. And we did an original show in Des Moines. And at the top of our career, we ended up making a change in our directions. And that was the end of the Daugherty Davis McPartland group. And we haven't played together since that night. And ironically, all five musicians who played in that show, John Reesner, guitarist, Steve Charleston, bassist, will be joining us, the Jazz Under the Stars, for Thursday. It'll be a very interesting and fun night.
So the band was always known as Daugherty, Davis, and McPartland, but you almost always had other musicians with you. As a matter of fact, I was joking with Steve Charleston, who is a bass player around the area and now has been working out of the Des Moines area for several years. And he always said, yeah, I don't know why it wasn't Daugherty, Davis, McPartland, and Charleston, because it should have been.
Everybody wanted to put their name on the marquee, believe me. I have a picture of Tim Daugherty group and me doing my pose like this and that type of thing. But yeah, we ended up with that name, and for some reason, it kind of stuck. And the Cedar Rapids area, Iowa City, Des Moines area, we really played quite a bit around the Iowa area, and we were all professional musicians. That's basically what we did for a living. So we did a lot of traveling, and we made some interesting travels. We traveled up to like Fargo, North Dakota. Denny and I kid, we were like the Spinal Tap of the jazz group in Iowa. But not too many people were trying to do it full time like we were doing it. Back in the 80s, it was a different time. You had to go out on the road. You had to promote, produce yourself. Obviously, no internet back then. And it was a very interesting time. We played a lot of weddings. You talked about people playing with us. We had a small group of just the trio, but when the money was there, we always wanted to add more players. But it was tough just trying to keep ourselves alive. And, as a three-piece band, we were able to work, which was great for us.
You also toured the Soviet Union in the 90s, correct?
That was correct. In 1991, we went there literally 2 weeks after a coup that took place. And that was an amazing time. We did a cultural exchange with Stavropol, Russia. We were selected by the Iowa Arts Council as the group to represent the state of Iowa, which was fantastic. And we did some concerts over there for about 2 weeks. I'd been working at Schoolhouse Studios with John Reesner, took a DAT player, and we recorded it, and we made a cassette back then called, it was To Russia with Love. It was my play on James Bond. It was an incredible time because we were treated like the Beatles there. It was amazing. We went to a group that played big band music, and we had an interpreter with us. Very little English being spoke over there at the time. And the guy who did all the arrangement wrote all the arrangements by listening to the records. There was none of this, was all his own writings because they didn't have access to that material, which is the big band material. It blew me away. But the people there were amazing. And I always said they were the most gracious, loving people that I've ever met. I've worked all over the world and met a lot of different people. It was amazing.
You also got some funding in those early days from the Iowa Arts Council to do some in-school concerts and residencies for elementary school students. And that was the program that actually grew into Schoolhouse Jazz that we still have today at KCCK.
Yeah, that was a great way for us to go around rural Iowa and introduce a lot of kids to jazz music. It was a fantastic experience. We had a lot of fun. We met a lot of kids, didn't get a chance to maybe play jazz or have jazz performers of our stature come and work with them. We would go in there and work with the kids for a week and then play a concert with them. It was a great program. It was great that KCCK was able to keep that going. And it's been how many years now that Schoolhouse Jazz has been a prominent part of your scene, which is wonderful.
It was not long after I got to KCCK that I ran into Dennis at a music event. It might have been the Iowa City Jazz Festival. And we were talking about different things related to the radio station, music and stuff. And Dennis said, well, Tim and I, we've been, we had some funding for a while to go to schools, but that kind of fell away. It sure would be nice to be able to do that again. And that was how Schoolhouse Jazz began.
Yeah, and it's been fantastic, and that turned off as Blues in the Schools it came from that as well. So it's wonderful that KCCK has kept that type of educational program going, and it's wonderful.
And Dennis continues to play in Schoolhouse Jazz in the band to this day. Billy Davis lives in the Florida area, and I know that he plays with a lot of the musicians who work professionally at Disney World and has recorded and performed with them. So he continues to play at a very high level. And you have gotten into music directing in the cruise industry, among other things. So tell me a little bit about your post-Iowa activities.
I'll tell you, it's been very interesting. Bill Davis, one time when we were performing, he said, "I have an opportunity for us to work on a cruise ship, performing and doing our just main show." And I thought that was interesting. Billy, go ahead and take care of that. Nothing ever did come out of it. And then Denny and I were out at a workshop in LA, another funding through the Iowa Arts Council, where we got to go and see great artists. And that was when the International Association of Jazz Educators was a prominent part of our scene. And we were out there waiting for the Wynton Marsalis Clinic, and I noticed there was a person asking, or right there from Montreal, looking for people to play music on cruise ships. So I just kind of had about 5 minutes. I walked in there for an audition, and he said, "Can you do this?" And I went, da, 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 da. And he said, "Well, can you do that?" And da, da, da. And he said, "When can you start working?" And it wasn't about a year and a half later when I finally had an opportunity where I had an opening, and I worked a jazz cruise for Crystal Cruises for 3 weeks, had a great time. And then I worked a world cruise, which was very exciting for me because I wanted to go, and it was a world cruise, seeing the world on the Queen Elizabeth. And things happened on that ship which were very strange. But I ended up being transferring to a ship on Princess in the Caribbean, and I played with some great musicians. One being, a guy who worked with Steve Coleman, famous sax player, a guy who worked with Maynard. I had a great time, and I even got to become the golf pro on the ship. And then I started working with the Holland American Line as the music director. And now what I'm doing now is I work with a Blackburn agency out of London, and I do guest entertainer shows. So I go on and perform my shows on ships, which are a lot of fun. So I've been in the industry, I can't believe it, for over 20 years.
So Daugherty Davis McPartland taking the stage together for the first time in 28 years. Give us just a little preview. What can we expect at Jazz Under the Stars?
Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to play some of our original music that I think was probably what I would call our biggest hits. We're going to be playing Worthy of Magic, Midnight Rendezvous, which was a sax feature for Billy D. Come With Me, which is a very funky tune that cases that. We're also going to perform Iowa Will Be Waltzing, Tennessee Will Be Singing the Blues, which was the tune that brought us all together. And then, of course, we're going to try to do some, I would call, crowd favorites. And we're going to have my brother, Michael Daugherty, is coming from Michigan, and he's going to be joining us and playing on a couple of Herbie Hancock tunes and playing a trio tune for the audience of some of an old standard, which should be fun.
This is just going to be a blast. We're looking forward to it. As I said, it's all reunions this year at Jazz Under the Stars, but kicking it off with the biggest Iowa reunion of all, as Daugherty Davis and McPartland and friends and family will take the stage August 7th. 6:30 is when things start for the first time in 3 decades from the three of you together, finally again. So, Tim, we're really looking forward to it, and we'll see you on the 7th.
All right, Dennis, we're looking forward to it. Hello, Iowa. We'll be back.
You can hear the Culture Crawl live on the radio most weekdays at 10:30, on demand at kcck.org/culture, or subscribe using your favorite podcast player. Watch our videos on the KCCK Facebook and YouTube channels. Our producer is Lydia Kilgore. The Culture Crawl theme is composed by Vivian Shanley. I'm Dennis Green, and I'll talk to you later.